President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber will hear testimony of a witness, that is to TCW 838, in relation to Phnom Kral Security Center. Ms. Sakalbati, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Greffier. Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present. Mr. Nuji is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to testify today, that is through TCW 838, confirms that through his best knowledge, he has no relationship by blood or by law to any of the two accused, that is Nunchi and Kiew Sampon, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. The witness took an oath before the Iron Club statue this morning, and he has Madame Sochita as his duty counsel. President, thank you, Ms. Sakalbuti. The Chamber now decides on the request by Nunji. The Chamber has received a waiver from Nunji dated 28 March 2016, which states that due to his health, that is headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his rights to be present at the 28 March 2016 hearing. He advises that his counsel advised him about the consequence of this waiver, that in no way it can be construed as a waiver of his right to be tried fairly or to challenge evidence presented to or admitted by this court at any time during this trial. Having seen the medical report of Nunji by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 28 March 2016, which notes that Nunji has a chronic back pain. When he sits for long, he feels dizzy, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81(5) of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber grants Nunji his request to follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The Chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nunji can follow. That applies for the whole day. Court officer, please usher the witness and his duty counsel into the courtroom. President, good morning, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Witness. My name is Bun Lăng Choi. President, thank you, Mr. Bun Lăng Choi. Are you known by any other names? Answer, my birth name is Chan Bun Lert. President, and what is your official name? Is it Bun Lăng Choi or Chan Bun Lert? Answer, it's Bun Lăng Choi. Thank you. And when were you born, Mr. Bun Lăng Choi? Answer, I was born on 22nd March 1953. Question, and where were you born? Answer, I was born in Koh Mayer, Piem Chimiet Commune, Koh Nye District, Mundul Kiri Province. Question, and where is your current address? Answer, currently I live in Doh Kramom village, Sokadom Commune, San Manorom District, Mundul Kiri Province. Question, what is your current occupation? Answer, I was a deputy chief of the information office, but I am now retired. Question, what are the names of your parents? Answer, my father is Chan Bun Long and my mother is Dam Thon. Question, what is the name of your wife and how many children do you have? Answer, my wife is Saravan Lee. We have 5 children. President, thank you, Mr. Bun Lăng Choi. The greffier made an oral report that to your best knowledge you are not related to any of the 2 accused, that is Nuon Chi and Kieu Sampon, or any of the civil parties admitted in this case. Is that information correct? Answer, yes, that is correct. Question, and that you already took an oath before the Iron Crab statue located to the east of this chamber, is that correct? Answer, yes, I took an oath already. President, thank you, Mr. Bun Lăng Choi, and the chamber would like to inform you of your rights and obligations as a witness. Your rights. As a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment which may incriminate you. That is your right against self-incrimination. The obligations. As a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comment to those questions may incriminate you, as the chamber has just informed you of your right as a witness. You must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that the bench or parties pose to you. And Mr. Bun Lăng Choi, have you been interviewed by investigators from the office of the co-investigating judges? If so, how many times, when, and where? Answer. I was interviewed for 2 times at my residence, and I was interviewed at a hotel in the provincial town for another time. Question. Have you read or reviewed the written records of your interview that were conducted twice at your home and once at the provincial town of Mandalkiri province in order to refresh your memory? Answer. Yes, I read them last night and the night before. Question. And to your best knowledge, can you tell the chamber whether the WRIs reflect the words that you told the OCIG investigators during those interviews? Answer. I read those WRIs. In some parts they are consistent, however, some other parts are incomplete. President, thank you, Mr. Bun Lung Choi. You have your duty counsel who is sitting next to you per your request through Visu. And we have Madame Soksachita as your duty counsel, and pursuant to Rule 91 bis of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber gives the floor first to the co-prosecutors. And the combined time for the co-prosecutors and the little co-lawyers for civil parties are 3 sessions. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, Counsel. Good morning, Mr. Witness. My name is Dale Lysak. I'll be examining you, asking you some questions today. And I wanted to start with a few questions about your personal background. You state in your interviews that you went to the jungle and joined the revolution, the resistance in 1966 or 1968. Did you at some time become a member of the party? And if so, can you tell us when you became a party member?
Allow me to respond to your question. I entered the forest in 1968 in around May of that year. At that time, I did not become a party member. I was an ordinary combatant at the time.
Did you become a party member later on, in some later year?
I was not yet a party member by 1975.
And what about after 1975? Did you ever become a member, whether a youth member or a candidate member of the party?
became a member of the Youth League, and I was actually appointed as a group chief.
And what year was that?
I cannot recall the date, however, it was in 1975 when I was recruited to be a member of the Youth League and appointed a group chief of 5 or 6 members.
Okay. Can we start by, can you take us through briefly and describe the various positions you held and where you were located during the Khmer Rouge regime, that is from April 1975 until January 1979. Can you please tell us over that period what positions you had and where you were located?
In 1975, I was a bodyguard to Kasi, who was the secretary of Keo Sema district, and that continued through 22nd February 77 when he was arrested, and then I was sent to he was sent to the security center in Koh Nhai. I was with him for about a month at that location. Then he was taken away from where I was, and he was killed. So I was with him for about 2 years. And in fact, I had been with him since the period of the resistance, that is in 1973, when I became his bodyguard. And as I said, in 1975, I became a member of the Youth League.
I want to get you to clarify something then. In your OCIJ interview, and this is document E35178, Khmer ERN 00197-860, English 00274-099, French 00485-184. This is what you said in your interview to the investigators. Quote, before moving to Koh Nhai, I was a deputy secretary of Khao Sema district office because my uncle Kasi was district secretary. I served as his messenger from 1971 to 1975. I worked as deputy secretary from 1975 to 1977. End of quote. Let me stop there and get you to clarify. Does this refresh your memory of the positions and timing, Mr. Witness? And specifically, is it correct that you were a deputy secretary of the Khao Sema district office from 1975 to 1977?
I reject that statement. As a bodyguard, I would not be able to be a deputy chief of the district. I was not in that position, and as I said, my position at the time was his bodyguard.
Well, Mr. Witness, you also told DC Cam when they interviewed you, reference E3 5636, Khmer 0004245, English 00711-200, French 00727-123. This is what you said to DC Cam about your positions. Quote, in 1973, I was the district secretary's bodyguard in Khao Sema. In 1974-75, I was the head of Khao Sema district office. In 1976-77, I was evacuated with Pu Kasi. End of quote. Why is it, Mr. Witness, that both your DC Cam and OCIJ statements indicate that you held a more senior position than bodyguard later on, that is sometime in 1975, 1976? Both of your interviews indicate this, Mr. Witness. Can you explain that?
I believe that the person who made that record of that interview made a mistake. Deputy Secretary was a senior position, and of course I was a bodyguard to a cadre, and the cadre was in charge of that office, and he was not even in a higher or senior position, and I was simply a combatant. I would never be able to be promoted to become a deputy secretary of the district. That would not be possible, and there is no such a promotion at all. And I stand by my statement that I was a bodyguard in 1975, and later on I was a deputy chief of the office, and I was a member of the youth league, and I was in charge of a group of 5 to 6 members. And there was a person who was the chief of the office, and I was a deputy chief of the office, while Kasi was the secretary of the district. As I stated, it would not be possible at all for me to be promoted to the deputy secretary of the district.
Okay, let me see if I understand. So it wasn't deputy secretary that was your position. At some point you became deputy chief of the district office. Do I understand correctly?
Answer. To my knowledge, at the time I had a low position in the office of a district, and I was not promoted to the secretary of the district. So my function and role at the time was not equal to the deputy secretary or secretary of the district.
I understand that now, Mr. Witness. You indicated that rather than deputy secretary, at some point you became the deputy chief of the office. When was it that you became deputy chief of that office?
បាទខ្ញុំ
Answer. It was perhaps in June 1975, to my recollection, after the liberation of Phnom Penh.
And who was the person who was deputy secretary under your uncle Kasi?
បាទសូម
Answer. Allow me to inform the court. Kasi was the secretary, and his deputy was Jindam. And the members' names, the first member was Kong, the second one Kam, in the district that he was in charge. And he was in charge of soldiers and medics in the district. There were 5 of them in the army and medics, so altogether 5 in the district committee.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Witness. Now, you indicated that in February 1977, your uncle and you were removed from the Khao Sema district office. Can you tell us why your uncle was removed and where it was that you were first sent to when you left Khao Sema district?
Answer. I could recall some facts. He was removed. It was in February of 1977. The reason of transfer was of the fact that he supported and he did not report a member in the district who committed a moral offense. So he was disciplined and then he was demoted so that he could be monitored until a decision to arrest him was made.
ហើយពេលនោះដែរខ្ញុំ
2 days later, I was taken and sent to a work site working together with him, and 1 month later I was dispersed from him so that they could take him to be killed. That was your work site, a work site to do the agricultural product. Sathorn was the head of an office of the commerce at that location. There was another head of office of the work site. The name was Tapi. He was in charge of the work site, and he was the one who was in charge of the field or the work site.
Thank you. Can you clarify, in your DC Cam interview, you indicated that when you were removed from Khao Sema, you first went to office K16, and then after K16 later on, you were sent to the Roya work site. Does that refresh your memory, Mr. Witness? Is it correct that you first went to K16, or did you go directly to the Roya work site when you left Khao Sema district?
បាទជា
Answer: that is true.
How long were you at the K16 office before you were sent on to the Roya worksite?
Answer: to my recollection, 2 or 3 months later, I was sent to Roya. And when I was at K16, I was assigned to saw wood to build a school building. So I was at K16 from February to June. So I was there for several months.
And you said you were together with your uncle Kasi for about 1 month. Was that, were you together with him at K16, or was that later on at the Roya worksite?
Answer: at K16. He was placed in K16. He was not sent forward to Roya worksite, but I was sent to that worksite.
And so were you present at K16 when your uncle Kasi was arrested?
បាទនៅ
Answer: I was with him for a period of time, and when it was time that he was arrested, I had been sent away first.
How did you learn that your uncle Kasi had been arrested?
Answer: it was an accident. I had a relative. He was sent to uproot a plant's roots, and at the time he witnessed that Kasi was arrested, and after his return from work he told me that Kasi had been arrested.
And can you clarify one more thing, Mr. Witness? Were you yourself accused of any wrongdoing, or were you removed from your position in Khao Sema because of the accusations against your uncle?
Answer: to the best of my knowledge, I perhaps did not have any misinfraction. Trust was withdrawn from me because of my uncle.
So you've indicated that you were, when you were removed from Khao Sema district office, you were sent to K16 from February to June 1977, and then in June 1977 to the Roya worksite. Can you tell us where was the Roya worksite located?
Answer: Royo worksite was located in Konya district. It was under K17, that is Crown Mountain. So it was about 8 kilometers away from that mountain.
And you said it was under K17. What was K17?
Answer. K17 office was the office of sector 105. After K17 there was another office, K16, and K16 was not in this. It was not belongs to sector. Rather, it was belongs to the deputy chief of the sector, K16.
Were the K16 and K17 offices close to each other? And if so, how far apart were those two offices?
Answer. Compared to the previous time, it is now further away from each other, so it is about 2 kilometers away from one another.
Just to clarify, I'm asking about back in 1977. Were these offices 2 kilometers apart in 1977, or were they closer together at that time?
Answer. It was not close to one another. Since the beginning in 1975, K17 was posted on the Growl Mountain, and K16 was located in the same location at the Jorowa area at Ojba.
Thank you for clarifying that. And one last question about locations. The Roya worksite, where was that in relation to the K17 office? Which direction and how far from K17 was the Roya worksite?
Answer. It is my estimate that it is not more than 8 kilometers away, 6 or 7 kilometers away. At the time, we were on foot when we were traveling. And if there were roads, better roads, the distance would be nearer.
Can you, were you under arrest when you were at the Roya worksite? I wasn't clear on that from your OCIJ interview. Can you tell us whether you were under arrest when you were at that worksite?
Answer. No, I was not under the arrest. I was detained so that I could be protected. I was not arrested, I was not tied up, and I was not chained.
Thank you. You said you went to the Roya worksite in June 1977. How long were you at that worksite?
Answer. To my observation, it may be wrong. I was in the work site from June up to December when I fell ill. In December, fell ill and I was hospitalized. And then, after December, perhaps it was in January and February, I was also there at the work site. So I was in hospital in February next year.
How long were you in the hospital for, Mr. Witness?
Answer. I was in the hospital until the liberation of 7 January. I could not walk. I could not walk. Half of one of my legs I could not move. And perhaps I was there in the hospital for less than 1 month, and after that the liberation occurred.
Okay, thank you for giving us that timeline of your what happened to you during the regime. One further question, you've talked about your uncle Kasi being arrested. Did your uncle Kasi have a wife and children? And if so, what happened to them when your uncle was arrested?
Answer. He had a wife. When his wife was arrested, the meeting had been held and there was a declaration at the time, and the wife was sent to the cooperative. At the time, he had 6 or 7 children, and one of his children is deceased. The rest is living.
I want to move on now to some events that took place in your sector during the Khmer Rouge period. First, I wanted to ask you what happened when the Khmer Rouge were in power in Mondulkiri. What happened to people who were identified as former officials or soldiers of the Lon Nol regime?
Answer. It is difficult for me to respond to your question. Mondulkiri province was not liberated on the 17th of April 1975. In fact, it had been liberated in 1970. So it is very difficult for me to describe. During the time, the regime, Khmer Rouge regime, was fighting Lon Nol and also the Songkhram Riek. So at the time, liberation did not happen immediately after the war. So from 1970 up to 1975, that was the resistant period, and it is difficult for me to respond to your question, as I said earlier.
Let me ask you a different way. In the years 1975 and 1976, who were the primary people who were subject to arrests or executions in Sector 105?
Answer. Let me clarify. Those who were the target of arrest included different categories. New people, that is number one. People from Phnom Penh and other provinces. And those who were sent to Mondulkiri and they were not trusted. For the second group, the former soldiers in the previous regime. For those who got tired of the Khmer Rouge regime and stood up to resist. And the third group was those who were tired of communal eating and those who were tired of deprivation of their private possession or properties. I mean those who were deprived of their private ownership. These people were in the groups to be arrested. Later on, there was accusation of Khmer Saw, KGB, CIA, and Vietnamese network. And the last group of people, there is a Vietnamese network, was the most important target to be arrested.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. We'll I'll come back to some of those later categories, those other categories later today. Let me read to you something you said in your OCIJ interview. This is E3 5178, Khmer 00197-857, English 00274-095, French 00485-180 through 181. This is what you said in your statement, quote, "The victims," and you're referring here to the early years, "the victims were killed by an accusation of being relatives of the king, Lon Nol, soldier, police, civil servant, former commune chief, or commune secretary. And later in 1977, the victims were accused of being Vietnamese supporters." End of quote. Well, with respect to the former Lon Nol soldiers and officials, were all of those people targeted, or was it only those who held certain ranks?
President, please hold on. Mr. Winner, you have the floor first. Copper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, Council. Yes, I object to this question because I believe that that particular answer is related to the context in which the question was originally posed. He is asked a question about population statistics, asked a question about his position as Deputy Chief of Mondulkiri Provincial Information Office in '93. In the context in which it is read, it seems that he is answering that question from that position and not as someone who was actually involved at all in the alleged targeting of the groups mentioned there. So by just taking out that one sentence and not reading the full context, I believe that is not a fair question, and therefore I object. Also now, knowing what his position was, it seems highly doubtful that he, at the time, was in any position to have actual knowledge about the alleged targeting.
If I may briefly respond, the witness worked for his uncle, who was the district secretary in the district office, so he certainly had knowledge. And this is something, counsel wishes to pursue with this witness, I'm certainly going to, in my questions, as I always do, ask him how he knows things, but this is something counsel can pursue in his questioning if he has further clarification.
President, the chamber overrules the objection put by Counsel Kope and allow the witness to respond to the question. Mr. Witness, if you recall the last question put by the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, please respond.
Just to help you, Mr. Witness, my question was, were all Lon Nol soldiers and officials targeted, or was it only those soldiers or officials who held certain ranks?
Answer. On this particular issue, I would like to respond to your question in relation to some facts. So far, I have observed that former soldiers, some of them survived the regime, but some other who were under monitor were selected to be killed because of their behavior. In 1970, when Mondulkiri had been liberated, former soldiers could live peacefully at that area, but some leaders, commanders were killed only. Later on, when they started to be engaged in the cooperatives, since they were former soldiers, they were under scrutiny because of the fact that they were former soldiers. And for those who had good behavior, survived the regime. Those who could not bear the regime were killed. And later on, they were considered in 1975 that they were simply ordinary people. However, they were put in different classes. To my understanding, the former soldiers and ordinary people were not killed. Most of them were not killed in 1975. Only cadres, most of them were killed. This is the truth. The truth of what happening at the time. Those people in 1975 were not ordinary citizens or people. Those who were killed were from among the cadres.
Let me read to you what you said in your DC Cam interview, E3 5636, Khmer ERN 000-42469, English 00711-205, French 00727-126. This is what you told DC Cam about the early years of the Khmer Rouge. Quote, "Not many ordinary people were killed. Only the former ranking soldiers of major or captain were killed, while the lower troops were collected to be tempered and educated. If they complained, they were sent away." And continuing in the next answer, in 1975 to 1977, only the high-ranking officers' lines were killed, so fewer people were killed. End of quote. Is it correct, Mr. Witness, that the people who were targeted for killing in the initial years were those who held higher ranks in the Lon Nol regime.
Yes, that is correct.
And do you remember who it was that instructed on which ranks were to be targeted?
Through my knowledge, when there was a commander and his subordinates, that is a group chief or a squad chief, those chiefs would be arrested and killed if their commander was arrested and killed. So the arrest was usually made for the same line of the chief who was killed. And the arrest and killing took place only for cadres in 1975, including those military commanders at various positions. And usually the purge was conducted through the line or chain of command. Witness, please hold on. And Council Copper, you have the floor.
An observation, Mr. President. I'm not quite sure if things go well in the translation because the question obviously was about the alleged fate of Lon Nol military, but then the witness is answering, talking about cadres, and I believe he said the word purges. So I'm not quite sure whether the translation is done correctly or whether there is some confusion with the witness. I think it should be very clear as to what the witness is speaking about.
Counsel, you should wait with these observations until the witness has finished. Then you can make these observations, but interrupting the witness while he, in this case, is answering is not the way this should be done.
Mr. Witness, I want to ask you a few questions now about security or re-education offices in Mondulkiri sector. What security or re-education offices in Sector 105 did you know during the regime, that is from April 1975 to January 1979? What security offices were located in your sector?
In Mondulkiri, and through my knowledge, there was only one security center. However, there was another re-education center, and the security center was known as K11. It was simply a prison where people were detained, and there was a re-education center located in Nong Kilik. For those who committed minor offenses will be sent for re-education at that center. As for the work sites, if people made minor offenses, including the moral offenses, would be sent to work at various work sites at cooperatives. There was also another work site which was not yet a security center where former soldiers of the Lunal regime or of the Samdech regime were detained there, and the place was to temper those former soldiers. It was located in Chi Miet commune, and Long Kilik was a re-education center, as I stated. However, K11 was simply a prison, and it was located in the middle of Koh Nye district.
And to clarify, when you refer to the K11 security office, are you referring to a security office that was at the K11, the sector military compound, or are you referring to a security center that was located close to the Phnom Krau Dam? Can you clarify what you were referring to by the security center at K11?
Allow me to clarify the issue. I do not recall the real name of the security center. However, it was located near the K11 office at Phnom Krau. And as I said, it was a prison, although I cannot recall its official name. Thank you, Deputy Co-Prosecutor. The time is convenient for our morning break. We take a break now and resume at 10:30. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room during the break time and invite him as well as his duty counsel back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.
Roger.